Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Space and Rocket Review. It is February 10th, 2026. Space and Rocket Review. You to chat. Tell your friends. What's going on? I'm EJ, your host. And I'm the only host of the Space and Rocket Review. But here we go. This is where we sit down and we kind of talk about what's going on in the spaceflight industry. Do these a couple of times a week, or at least I've been trying to do these a couple of times a week. So there is a lot. I have 20 plus different individual links here. So let's just, let's go. First thing I'm going to do is go to next space flight, and we'll start here. Events. Crew 12, which was supposed to be tonight into tomorrow morning, got moved. Yeah, that got moved. It was supposed to be tonight into tomorrow morning, but they moved it 3 days out. So actually almost 4 days out. I do have a thing on that, which is right in here. This information was, this is from Marcia Smith at Space Policy Online. This is from the Crew 12 press conference that happened the other day. Yesterday, I was at the dentist, so I didn't really get to see it too much. Yeah, do you remember that thing about Eason? Yes, I do. I do remember that thing, but now it's not the time to ask. I'll figure we'll get to it later. Yeah, Friday the 13th. All right, let's go. So Crew 12 launch is being delayed today, now February 12th at 5:38 a.m. Oh, no, not Friday the 13th. That's Thursday. Okay. It must have pushed again, because now it's the 14th, so that's Saturday morning. Woof. Yeah, this post is a little bit out of date. That's funny because it's from freaking yesterday. All right. At the pre-launch presser, Steve Stitch says that the WX problem, that the main problem is high winds along the ascent corridor, and it's not looking good for February 12th either. Better after that. They'll get more briefing tomorrow and decide when they want to go. Okay, they did. Dina Cantella, Deputy ISS Program Manager, who is there instead of Dana Weigel, says Russia still plans to launch Progress in mid to late March, so repairs to Site 31 must be going well. I have more on that, actually, in the next thing. She later said March 22nd is still Roscosmos' target date for the next Progress. Back to the Crew 12 launch date, Steve Stitch noted as ULA has a Vulcan launch on Thursday. Crew 12 has priority on the range, but he sounded as though NASA doesn't expect the ascent corridor weather to be favorable on Thursday, and NASA will step aside for Vulcan decision tomorrow. Okay, they stepped aside for Vulcan. April remains the no earlier date for Starliner 1, which will be a cargo-only flight to validate changes made after the CFT, crew flight test. But they need to close out remaining technical work before setting an actual date, currently building a model to predict thruster behavior. Building a model to predict thruster behavior. I am a little concerned that Starliner hasn't flown in a good bit of time, and they're just now doing the model. They haven't finished the model, and flight is 2 months away. It's getting stuck at the station again, isn't it? No comment. No comment. Hey, Chris, what's going on? Everything's going good. Bill, what's going on? How you guys doing over on the YouTube side of things? That's good. Sorry for the late greetings. That's, yeah. All right. Interesting. That's very funny. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So check this out. Also over here, This is from Anatoly Zak. He reports a lot on what's going on in the Russian space program. Now check this out. The replacement to the collapsed service platform that disabled the only launch pad for piloted Soyuz rockets was now installed at Site 31, according to rumors from Baikonur, marking a major milestone in the repairs of the facility. I don't know, Ernock. I don't know what they've been doing this whole time. It's very weird. So yeah, guys, Soyuz's pad, the Soyuz pad, so that's Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, is where NASA astronauts still do launch to the space station, and with Russian cosmonauts as well, right? The service gantry, which is that thing, this piece right here, it's underneath the pad, and it slides out of the way when the rocket goes to launch. It's on rails, okay? Somebody didn't put the brakes on the rails, and when the thing launched, it popped out and then fell into the flame trench on the pad. Yeah, that whole gantry fell into the flame trench. It was not great, but yeah, people have been saying that it's going to disable the pad of the world. The Russian program's so screwed. I said no, I don't think so. I really don't think that service gantry is going to mess up things too much.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Hey, Chris, what's going on? Let's go. The reason why, guys, is because the Russians have a contractor for that in Russia. Now, that service gantry that got ejected and fell was made in the Ukraine, which, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that they probably don't want to build another one, and we'll just leave it at that. So, yeah, a lot of people thought that was a major problem. Like, oh no, they're not going to build another one. But the thing is that Russia has built Soyuz pads relatively recently, compared to Site 31, relatively. Site 31 dates back to the Soviet times. They have built a Soyuz pad at Vostochny, which is their eastern spaceport, that came online in 2017, 2018. And then there was also the pad at French Guiana that they were using with the ESA, but they are not using that anymore. So the point is that because these pads were built relatively recently, there was a supplier. There's a supplier in Omsk, I think. Hang on one second. I got it. The headset timed out. Hello? There was a supplier in Russia, and they had recently built pads for Vostochny and French Guiana. So that coupled with spare parts, I really didn't think this was going to put them down for the count for a long period of time. I don't know if they pulled the spare or if they made another one spoiled, but either way, there should be enough that between a pre-existing contractor and spare parts, it should be enough to fix it pretty fast. I said it at the time that it's probably not going to take very long, because they have a contractor and they have a spare. The spare is already down there, so yeah, they just got to install it. Trey, we'll get to that question later. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Now, so check this out. This is coming from the Artemis program. Last week's wet dress rehearsal test for the Artemis 2 mission brought teams one step closer to liftoff. That's how you want to describe that. I suppose that's okay. Since the test, technicians have replaced 2 seals in the area where operators found a hydrogen leak. Okay, the seals got gacked.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Teams are also adding additional time in the countdown to allow for more troubleshooting. Hey, Maddie. 16 months later, no regrets, more rockets, more better. That's right. March is the next potential launch opportunity. NASA will set a targeted launch date after completing a successful wet dress rehearsal and test, reviewing the data. When's that happening? Since concluding a wet dress rehearsal on February 3rd ahead of Artemis 2, technicians have replaced 2 seals in an area where operators saw higher than allowable hydrogen gas concentrations during the test. Engineers are analyzing the removed seals and developing plans to address all issues ahead of the next rehearsal. Once testing at McGregor. Moo! Once the Space Launch System's rocket tanks were drained of cryogenic propellant following the previous test, technicians immediately began work to access the tail surface mast umbilical on the mobile launcher and detach the ground side interface plates to inspect the area of elevated gas levels and replace seals. Don't do this, NASA. Once the Space Launch System's rocket tanks were drained of cryogenic propellant following the previous test, technicians immediately began to work to access the tail surface mast umbilical on the mobile launcher and detach rocket and ground side interface plates to inspect the area of the elevated gas levels and replace it. And replace 2 seals around the fueling lines. That's a run-on sentence. That's awful grammar. Yeah, I'm sorry. When I'm reading this, dude, reading this out loud and being clear and concise is hard enough. So, yeah, sometimes it's on me, sometimes that. 2 tail surface masts, each about 3 stories tall, provide cryogenic propellant lines and electrical cable connections to the SLS core stage. The tail surface masts tilt back before launch and include quick disconnect mechanisms that instantaneously disconnect at liftoff to ensure a safe and reliable retraction at launch. Methane Eager Space did a good video on Artemis 2. It makes me rethink why people need to be on Artemis 2. I've had my doubts, but we'll see what happens. While teams continue evaluating the cause of the leak, reconnecting the interfaces is expected to be complete by Monday, February 9th. Testing is planned to occur at Stennis. What? Testing is planned to occur at Stennis Space Center in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, to evaluate additional dynamics of the plates. Why didn't you do that before we put the rocket on the pad? Engineers are reviewing options to test the repair work prior to the next wet dress rehearsal to ensure the seals are performing as expected. NASA will also update several operations for the next wet dress rehearsal to focus on fueling activities. The Orion crew module hatch will be closed prior to the test, and the closeout crew responsible on launch day for assisting the Artemis 2 crew into the seats and closing Orion's 2 hatches will not be deployed to the crew access arm will not be retracted during the next rehearsal after engineers successfully demonstrated the ground launch sequencer can retract it during the final phase of the countdown. Additionally, NASA has added 30 minutes of extra time during each 2 of the planned holds in the countdown before and after tanking operations to allow more time for troubleshooting, increasing the total time of the countdown by 1 hour. The additional time will not affect the crew's timeline on launch day. What happened to test as you fly, guys? What happened to test as you fly? Oh no, we'll just add additional time for when it inevitably screws up again. Who's making these decisions? This is awful. I'll talk more about that in a second. Since emerging from quarantine, NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen have continued training activities, ensuring their familiarity with the Orion spacecraft systems is second nature. The astronauts also have been reviewing the details of each flight of each flight day for the mission, bolstering their knowledge of the test objectives planned during the flight. When NASA continues to eye March as the next potential launch opportunity, the agency will not set a targeted launch date until after completing a successful wet dress rehearsal. Guys, I don't like this. I don't like it. I wouldn't do this way. What do I know about space? No, nothing compared to these folks. But, you know, okay. Let me give you an example. I mean, my opinion doesn't come out of the aether. Whatever, you know, even if it's like, you're just a guy, dude, what do you know? All right. I understand that. I'm not an engineer. I understand. But okay, hear me out. You have to be contiguous with your testing. Your testing has to be the exact same. If it's different, right? If it's different, you could potentially get a different result, right? Scientific method, right? You don't do the same thing twice. It's not a good experiment because you're not comparing A to B. Now, the problems that they had with the first wet dress rehearsal don't really necessarily have anything to do with the closeout crew or anything, you know? It's this stuff right here. But the closeout crew did have a problem. They did have a problem during their closeout sequence where they couldn't get Orion's outside hatch closed. There's two hatches. There's the hatch that goes to the capsule, and then there's the LAS hatch as well. They couldn't get them. They couldn't get one of them closed all the way, and they had a problem, and that did delay the count even more during the original wet dress rehearsal. Now, here's my question. NASA keeps saying, test as you fly, test as you fly, test as you fly. What's this? Your closeout crew had a problem, so you're just not going to have them go back again? And your solution is adding an extra 30 minutes to the count in case something goes wrong? I don't like that. I would not do that way. That is, once again, you have test A and you have test B. That's changing things. Adding 30 minutes for when the thing inevitably breaks is not fixing stuff. That's not fixing things at all. Now, keep in mind, there's only so much you could do with the rocket on the pad. You know what I mean? There's only so much you can do with that thing. You know, you're not going to redesign the seal, right? You're not going to redesign it with it out on the pad, which is probably why they're just like, oh, add extra 30 minutes so we can, you know, heat and cool it and get it to seat correctly, right? But do we even know what damaged those seals in the first place? Was it rollout? If it was rollout, why attach the seal? Why attach the TSMU in the first place? Attach the TSMU on the pad, right? Why even do that? Right? Because they said NASA hinted at that rollout, that basically them rolling the entire launch complex to the pad, basically the vibrations broke one of the seals or both of them, right? Yeah. So this is not testing as you fly. This is doing the opposite of that. And that's going to make more problems. This does not bode well in my confidence for a next wet dress rehearsal. Something else will go wrong. Not a bad thing or anything. They're not going to get the seal to seat. Well, they may get the seal to seat, but, you know, here's the thing. You're not going to do the closeout crew activities, right? You're not going to swing the crew axis arm on this wet dress rehearsal. Here's the thing. This wet dress rehearsal might go just fine. It might be okay. Might be perfectly fine. Guess what? When you get into the count, something with this will go wrong. Something with the closeout crew will go wrong because that's Murphy's Law. That's what happens in spaceflight. Oculix, what are you saying? It's okay. The closeout crew screwed up the last practice run. So to solve the problem, we're taking them off the schedule so they can screw up. So they won't mess up subsequent practice runs. No, this is not good testing. Now, I do understand. I guess I understand the 30 minutes of count here. I understand that because there's not much you could do here. You can fuel the rocket, you can heat the seal, you can cool it, you can heat the seal and cool it, and hope it seats correctly. You're not going to go redesigning the seal on the entire vehicle. That's not now. It's already on the pad. Dub question, why not mock up the connection and test it? Well, John, that's been my real big thing here. You know, NASA said that they really don't have any other way to test this. Well, that's bull crap too. That was a crock of crap. Clearly they do, because they admitted it right there. See what I'm saying? This is not contiguous. It's not concrete. This stuff has to be airtight. Well, obviously the Orion has to be airtight. That's not, I'm speaking figuratively. This is all over the place, man. It's all over the place. And like, once again, do I know enough about this to really be making judgment? I got like 20,000 hours in KSP, if that helps. But also at the same time, these aren't my rules for conducting spaceflight. They're NASA's rules. And in the press conference, it's like, oh, test as you fly, test as you fly, test as you fly. Well, your closeout crew didn't complete all objectives in a timely manner in the first wet dress rehearsal, so your solution is to just not have them go to the pad? I don't like that. That's not a good decision at all. That's a bad decision. That's an awful way of saying that. That's an awful way of doing that. How does adding 1 hour not affect the timeline? They start earlier, excessive. They start earlier. That's all. But did they say they're actually modifying their test procedures? It says testing is planned to occur at Stennis Space Center in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, to evaluate additional dynamics of the plates. If you had plates there at Stennis to evaluate the dynamics of the plate, why didn't you do that in the first place? And I know what people are going to say. Well, EJ, it's really easy for you to say that in hindsight. That's what happened with the first flight. We'll do a fat electrician. Buh! How could you predict the future? Buh! No. That's what happened in the first flight. Fix it. That happened 3 years ago. What the frick? Stop it. Fix it. Just make it fuel. What are you doing? Am I wrong? Like, I don't know. I understand it's hard to predict the future with this stuff, but also at the same time, you're planning to evaluate additional dynamics of your tail surface mast umbilicals at Stennis after they screwed up. Well, they screwed up 3 years ago. Where was that testing then? Did nobody thought to, do that? The closeout crew needs to practice. This is their first time loading people into Orion. None of this makes any sense to you. That's what I'm saying, man. What are you guys doing? What are you who's making these decisions? Stop it. Stop it. This is not the... Oh, we don't need to do that. Well, we don't need to do this. We don't do that. That is awful. This is an awful way to test. And yes, I understand that the wet dress rehearsal does not have any bearing on the closeout crew's activities, but the closeout crew not being able to get one of Orion's hatches closed correctly and then saying, oh no, it's fine, they don't need to do that again. I mean, they didn't get it closed correctly initially, and then they fixed it, and then they closed it correctly, which... Is it not Jared Isaacman making these decisions to push timelines forward? I don't know if it's coming from him, Sam, but this is not a good way to do things. I will tell you that right now. This is not the right, that's not right. It's cutting corners. That's right, Chris. It's cutting corners. I don't like it. It's part of a bunch of patterns that I've been seeing in the lead up to this flight that make me very concerned. But once again, I'm just a guy that streams on Twitch, dude. What do I know? I get it. I'm not like, who am I to assess? Probably not good enough. But also, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be making that decision. My decisions would be completely different. Follow up to your previous. It makes sense that NASA has the perfect point to switch. What do you mean? They have a timeline of government pressure over timeline. Yeah, I don't give a frick about that. Yeah. You have a timeline for the mission. If the closeout crew can't get the crew into the damn capsule correctly, then your mission is not going anywhere. Kind of need the crew, right? That's kind of important. Even if the closeout crew weren't perfect before, which it didn't, this is an opportunity for more practice, which simply makes live operations more likely to go as practice. That's what I'm saying, Nader. This is like, in the meantime, I would have, just been like, all right, I get it. Does Starship on the moon happen in March 2027 like it has been said, or does it happen later than that? I don't know. Hard to say. Are they planning another wet dress rehearsal if this one goes well? No. If this next wet dress rehearsal goes correctly, then the next time they initiate a terminal, well, not a terminal count. The next time they start launch operations, it's going to be for the launch. I don't like this. This is bad practice. This is terrible. Look, guys, I'm just going to put it out in the aether right now. Closeout crew is going to have some problems during the mission. They're going to have problems with the hatch. You did it once. They got it to seal. There's nothing to say that you're going to seal it again the correct way on the first try. And it's not that I doubt the closeout crew. That maybe they'll get it right, and maybe I'm incorrect. And if I'm incorrect, I'll tell you. But I don't know why you wouldn't want more additional practice here. That doesn't make any sense. The only thing that could really make NASA not want the closeout crew to go screwing around with the capsule again is maybe the launch abort shroud hatch is only supposed to be opened and closed a certain amount of times before, it breaks. That's my guess. This is a fueling test, not a wet dress rehearsal. Yeah, Andrew, like I said, you could say that, but what happened to testing as you fly? That's correct, Aqualex. As far as I can tell, sure. Yeah. Why weren't these TSMU leaks figured out? It's been 3 years since the last flight. Now all of a sudden they can do testing at Stennis? Is there any coordination here at all? Because I'm telling you, man, I'm seeing red flags everywhere. I don't know, man. I don't like it. I'm noticing, no, sir. I don't like it. I'm noticing some real breaks in the pattern here. Like I said, a lot of NASA's rules aren't working. And this is like violating some flight ops rules for me too. Like, I don't know why you'd do that way. Shouldn't NASA be more transparent about the reasons for doing things? Feel like they are hiding or misleading a little. Even if the shroud has limitations on cycles, you could still do closeout up to the point of closing the shroud hatch. Better than zero practice. Yeah, I don't like it, Nader. I don't like this. I wouldn't do this way. I wouldn't, if I was on if I was like the program manager for the closeout crew, I wouldn't do this way. Even if I was the launch director, I wouldn't do this way. No, you need more practice with this. Clearly. Closeout crew has tried to do their job once. I don't like it. I'm agreeing with you. This is not a way to test. Oh, okay, cool. Is this someone trying to cover their butt for a giant screw up? It might be, Spoiled. I really think that, honestly and truly, that after this last wet dress rehearsal that they screwed up. Once again, body language is a thing. If you look at that last press conference, the post wet dress rehearsal press conference, they were pissed. They weren't happy. Now, that might be because they'd been up for like 2 days straight. I'd probably be a little grouchy too. But also at the same time, like, they went through that wet dress rehearsal with the expectation that thing wasn't going to leak, and it did. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty damn obvious that that's what was going on. More practice, more better. Agreed. Do we even know if the closeout crew is the same crew for Artemis 1? There was no closeout crew on Artemis 1, Sea Kraken. There wasn't people on it. You have a theater background. in this. Technical run, not a dress rehearsal. And this is not the test you do before opening night. Oh, yeah, Andrew. Yeah, there you go. Like, I don't mean to put bad vibes out into the aether here, but this is not, like, I'm not trying to dump on NASA. I'm not trying to be one of those, you know, concerned trolls, like, people that, I'm not trying to use this, like, as an axe to grind to say SLS shouldn't, or should or shouldn't fly. Personally, I think SLS should fly more. My big thing here is that, look, I said this on the Flame Trench, I'll say it again because it warrants reiteration. Artemis 2 is the first crewed flight for SLS and Orion. Right? This is the easiest Artemis mission to do out of all the other ones we need to fly. The only one that was easier than this is Artemis 1. The difficulty level between Artemis 1 and Artemis 2 has jumped exponentially. This is an exponentially more difficult mission. And guess what? The next one's going to be even more. Because the Orion capsule on Artemis 3, it needs to rendezvous with some type of lander. If it's, I don't know if it's going to be Starship HLS, or if it's going to be Blue Moon Mark 2, or Blue Moon 1.5, or Blue Moon Mark 7, or Blue Moon 6-7. I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? The Orion's proximity operations are that are demonstrated in Artemis 2 are going to need to turn into rendezvous proximity operations and docking, or RPOD, around in rectilinear halo orbit around the moon. That is a significant step in difficulty comparatively to the last mission, right? Artemis 4 is even crazier because you're flying with a different upper stage with crew for the first time, right? Every single mission from here is going to be increasingly difficult. This is the easiest one. The only mission that was easier than this is the last one. Doing this, oh, swap around, no closeout crew, oh, it's just a fueling test, oh, let's replace seals on the pad, blah, blah, blah. Doing this now, well, you could make the argument that, you know, they're working out the kinks in the vehicle. In which case, yeah, that's fair, but you usually do that not when you're going to launch with rockets. That's generally the idea. You don't want to have stuff like this happen during a terminal count. And it did break during a terminal count during tank pressurization. Right? But look, if you're going to play this way, and like I said, this is my kind of reasoning for being a dick about this. All right? Like, just frankly being like, no, that's dumb. No, that's dumb. Because look, teething problems notwithstanding, this is the easiest one. The next one's going to be even harder. The next one's going to be even harder after that. If you're making mistakes now, you're going to make more mistakes later. If you practice lazy, you play lazy. If you practice hard, you play hard. It's that simple. I don't give a frick if it's sports, rockets, you know, your theater troops play. It doesn't matter. You have to practice. You have to take it seriously. You have to practice like you're going to fly. Test as you fly. That's what NASA says. You're not doing that. You are not doing that. You're doing the opposite of that and then saying you're doing that. I don't like it. I don't like the mixed signals here. Look. Remember, only gets more difficult from here. Mixed signals is not going to work when something like Apollo 13 happens in the future. God forbid it does. We don't want anything like that. Right? There should 100% be 2, 3, or even more fully functional launches between full Artemis missions. We all knew the pad was sitting there for years untouched. They're acting like they didn't know. Dean, that's it, man. That's really it. They're like, oh, the pad broke. Well, we haven't used it in a little while. Well, freaking fix it! What do you mean you haven't used it in a little while? There's no test article out there. There's no MPS. There's nothing that you can put out there to freaking make this work. No mass simulators. No boilerplates. Nothing. 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 There's no other way to test the umbilical than to put the vehicle on the pad. Now, I don't buy that. That's bull crap. And even if it wasn't bull crap, nobody had the wherewithal to think about this. Nothing. The only easy day was yesterday. Bingo. It's been a while since NASA doesn't follow their own guidelines for engineering. Yeah, Lava, for real. And look, like I said, I ain't saying this to be a jerk. I like SLS. I think SLS is a good rocket. I think it needs a better upper stage. But even putting another upper stage on there, it's going to make it more difficult. You're going to have a more difficult mission. Who knows what the fueling's going to do with that thing, right? You can't figure out subscale SLS simulator for testing. It would take them 5 years. Well, there you go. There's your problem, Phil. There's your problem. These guys are going to sit here and they're going to, oh, we can't do that. The money's not there. Bro, you're sending people to the moon. Shut the hell up. Not you, Phil. You're sending people to the moon. You're not doing that on a budget. I don't give a frick what anybody says. This is all these little things like, we're going to do the second wet dress rehearsal. We don't need the closeout crew this time. They'll sit in the... No. I'm noticing these red flags all over the place, from the heat shield to the countdown operations to the seals not being fixed. I was told that this problem is a little bit different. It's about hydrogen concentrations versus leak rate. And yeah, I do understand that. I get it. I know the difference, right? But what causes hydrogen concentrations? Leaks, not leak rates. I get it. But also at the same time, like, man, you put this rocket on the pad 3 years ago. You did all that testing. You did a green run. You did everything with it. Right? How come Stennis didn't have this problem when they put the thing on the test stand there? Isn't it the same tail service mast umbilical? Now from that press release, it very much seems like it's the same thing. Now if it's the same thing, then what's the difference? How do you not have more data on this? You telling me the only time you fueled up an SLS core stage was the green run, the couple of wet dress rehearsals that you did, and then the Artemis 1 launch? That's it? That's all? You can count on two hands the amount of times they've tested this. Aqualex, I don't think so. Don't attribute to malice what you could attribute to incompetence. I think the real thing you hear is that NASA hasn't flown in a long time. This space shuttle nonsense. Oh, we could do this and not do that. We could do that. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Then again, it might have to because we're using a shuttle drive launch vehicle. But yeah, I don't like that. I don't like the changes. I don't like how it's, add 30 more minutes into the count so we could. That basically is admitting it inevitably is going to screw up. What happens when there's an HLS sitting out in rectilinear halo orbit around the moon with cryogenic propellants and you got a month delay for SLS because you can't fuel it? What happens then? That's what I mean about increasing difficulty. It's not just sending Orion out to a lander. The landers, you're using cryogenic propellants, so they have a shelf life. What happens? Oh, it doesn't fuel. That extra 30 minutes ain't going to save you. Mike, once again, I'll say it. I'll just leave it with this. I love SLS. I think it's a great rocket. I really do. I honestly and truly, I say that not lying. Hand on the book. I really think it's a good vehicle. I really do. These problems seem to be stemming from a programmatic standpoint. All right? These decisions that people are making, not the rocket, the decisions that people are making are what I mean by programmatic decisions. Not having the closeout crew come back. Oh, they don't need extra practice. Why would they? Like, no. This type of behavior is not... That's not conducive for success in your space program. It is not. I don't care what anybody says. I know I'm correct on this one. I will not be gaslit into thinking I'm incorrect. These decisions are terrible. And guess what, dudes? Decisions like this are what doomed the space shuttle program in the end. That's what got it. It wasn't the hardware. I will tell you this till I'm blue in the dang face. There's nothing wrong with the space shuttle stack. I think it's a great stack. The decisions made while stack was under operation were what led to the shuttle disasters. It has nothing to do with the design, save for the O-rings. The O-rings were stupid. But also, the SRB O-rings. But also, those O-rings work just fine when it's not 2 degrees out. Just saying. These... Oh, we could save some time by doing... No, what do you mean save some time? What do you mean save some time? The SLS program has been around since 2014. It's 2026, and you've launched once. What do you mean save some time? What is the big decision, the big flight rationale decision driving not having your closeout crew go and get some more practice? Why? That makes no sense. Other than saving some time and money. Are you cash strapped? What are we going to do? Penny pinch our way to the moon? That worked real well with the space shuttle, didn't it? You'd think that we'd learn. Anyway, let's get on to the next bit. No, sir. I don't like it. All right. They got to pull, I mean, once again, last thing. They got to pull their head out of their ass. I'm just going to be candid. I apologize for the bad language. I do it out of out of emphasis. You got to pull your head out of your ass. This is ridiculous. Stop it. The decisions, the flight rationale decisions driving the heat shield is a big red flag. Now the fueling procedure is a big red flag. Now a closeout crew is a big red flag. I don't like it. I don't like it. NASA has said this and then done another thing. They said test as you fly. They're not testing as you fly. And that might be a communications issue. In which case, Jared, fix it, dude. This is not great. Doesn't look good. Sorry. If the platform has been around for 12 years, why have we not been practicing for 12 years? That's a really good question, Excessive. Why haven't we? Why, after Artemis 1, dude, why haven't we sat there at Stennis and tested fueling through this umbilical as many times as humanly possible? And, you know, one could say, well, we didn't have the hardware. We didn't have the hardware. Bull crap, we didn't have the hardware. Make another freaking MPS. You know, people are going to say, well, you didn't make another MPS. It's going to delay the mission. Would you rather it not be fueled? Like, hello? Your rocket has a fueling problem. No, just keep making them. That's fine. We don't want to delay the mission. Just keep making them. It has a fueling problem. Just wish it's going to go away. We'll just, it's fine. We'll just wish it's going to go away. Yeah, well, you can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see what fills up first. Next news. Okay, this next thing's coming from Rocket Lab. Big milestone for our space systems team. Rocket Lab and Semper Sidious, SDA, Space Development Agency, have officially kicked off work on tracking layer Tranche 3. Tranche 3. It was fantastic to get the teams together, align on the mission, and get ready to build the next generation of missile warning, tracking, and space defense vehicles. This program really matters, and we're proud to be part of it. Nice. Cool. Rocket Lab's working with the Space Development Agency, which is a government agency in the Department of Defense. They're working on satellite constellations. What do? Don't know. Next milestone. Here we go. Our next bit of news. Stoke Space. Happy to announce an extension of our Series D funding round to $860 million, adding $350 million to the initial $510 million raised in October of 2025. This brings our total funds raised to $1.3 billion for Stoke. We're grateful to our investors and excited to bring our fully and rapidly reusable Nova rocket to market while accelerating future elements of the product roadmap. Whoa. Stoke got another $350 million. Andy Lapsa must be cooking some real good stuff over there. Yeah, it's the same thing. 1.3 billion. Now, guys, I'm not, I know a good bit about like funding and how funding for in the private space sector really goes. I've been covering this for a long time. $1.3 billion is enough to do what they're trying to do. That's enough to do the fully reusable rocket. That's enough to make Nova. It'll work. I'm pretty damn sure. Andy Labsa, the CEO of this company, is not, well, to be very candid, he's not an idiot. Stoke has a 7-man design team. 7 people. That's it. 7 people designed that whole rocket. 7 people got a full flow stage combustion cycle engine for the first stage working. 7 people. Think about that for a second. Stoke is an extremely small workforce. It's very small. They were doing suborbital hop tests with their what would be called the Andromeda engine for their reusable second stage, which is basically a heat shield and a rocket engine kind of combined into one thing. 7-man design team. That's it. It's not like you actually need that many people nowadays with all the tools available. How many people work on the SLS program, Aqualex? Sorry. They kick them when they're down. I get it. All right, next bit of news. Check this out. ULA's Vulcan rocket is on the launch pad for the SF-87, Space Force 87 mission that will place the National Security Spacecraft into a geosynchronous orbit. It will be our next generation rocket's heaviest payload yet and the longest flight to date, lasting 10 hours. Liftoff is scheduled for Thursday at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral. Weather forecasters giving a 95% chance of go. Our play-by-play status journal begins at 10 p.m. Eastern, and the live webcast starts 20 minutes before liftoff. Ooh, rolling footage. We like that. Hello. So that's a Vulcan VC4 configuration. Vulcan Centaur 4 SRBs. That's going to pack a punch. It's going to go. It's going to go hard. I do believe this is the second VC4 to fly. They've flown one prior. Is SpaceX that much more inefficient than Stoke? Or is Starship just that much more crazy that they need so many engineers? Falcon was the Falcon 1 rocket detail was assembled by a small engineering team. SpaceX was not always a gigantic company. Just think about that. It's not just it's the design team, but then you got to go into production, etc., etc. Stoke will expand after the first flight, most likely, or they're trying to expand now. That could be one of their bits for needing more investment money to start scaling. Long story short, it's not just about the rocket with SpaceX data, it's about everything else. Remember, the factory is your part of your expectations for the vehicle. Starship needs to be mass produced. No one has ever done this before. No one's tried that. No one's ever tried to mass produce a rocket. No one's ever tried to make a rocket that can refly on the hour. Long story short, what SpaceX is doing is pretty insane. Yeah, pretty crazy. It's very much uncharted territory. Like, very much uncharted territory. So, yeah, SpaceX needs to, big. They need to be that way. I'm going to be honest. I don't believe that 7 people. Just looked on LinkedIn, and only people with common connections to me, I found at least 10 people doing propulsion engineering at Stoke since at least 2023. They may have scaled since, but 7 people designed that rocket, dude. They obviously have scaled since, Jock, but yeah. I mean, they're... So there's plenty of resources if you want to figure this out or you want to go look. Tim Dodd has an interview with Andy Lapsa if you want to go get some information from there. I can't show it to you on stream. Tim doesn't want me to show it. Which is fine. I totally get that. I'm not trying to be a dick. That's his decision because it's his media, you know? There's plenty of info on that if you want to go look. Yeah, they like I said, they're going to scale eventually, but Stoke is a ridiculously small operation. for what it is. 7 people designed that rocket. That's it. Now, building it in other things, like working on propulsion, I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, if you want to go look, you could do that. I'll keep sharing more space news. Ariane Space. Flight VA-267, the first Ariane 6-4, is now fully assembled on the launch pad with 32 Amazon LEO satellites on board. Amazon LEO satellites are now safely encapsulated under the Ariane 6's 20-meter high fairing and have been transferred to the launch pad at Europe's spaceport in French Guiana. All right. Cool. Ariane 6-4. That should go pretty hard off the pad. Milestone brings the mission closer to launch as the fairing is now installed atop the Ariane launcher. 32 satellites on board are part of Amazon LEO, designed to deliver fast, reliable internet to customers beyond the reach of existing networks. Mission VA-267 will mark the entry into service of the Ariane 6-4, 4-booster variant of Ariane 6, flying the heaviest payload launched to date for Amazon LEO's constellation. It will also be the first of 18 Ariane 6 missions supporting its development. Supporting its deployment, not development, excuse me. Get ready for liftoff. Liftoff is February 12th, 2026. All right, let's just look at it over here. Thursday at 11:45 a.m. I will be here for that. Yep, we'll be here for that. Cool. 11:45 to 12:13, Washington, D.C. time. Mission duration, 1 hour and 54 minutes. Nice. Nice. So tomorrow at 9, we have Starlink 17-34. I might come around for that. Who knows? Then we have something I don't care about. And then we have, SF-87. I signed up, full disclosure, dudes, I signed up for the NSF coverage for this. Whether they assign me to it or not is another thing. It launches at 3:30 in the morning. So, you know. So, you know, my sleep schedule is just going to be ruined. I just did that in anticipation of Crew 12. That's all. See, you just did that in anticipation of Crew 12. Crew 12 is going to screw up my sleep schedule too. Did you know that when you signed up? Yep, I did. Like I said, I'm going to need to intentionally screw up my sleep schedule this week to cover launches. I have an ace in the hole. It's called Factorio. Well, we don't need to worry about that. It's already going to get messed up. Yeah, well, Leon, see, you get it. I'm just being efficient with my time. That's all. So we'll see how that all goes. We'll see. Actually, let me take a look. Did we get assigned? Yep. Yep, we did. Crap. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Chris B just posted that like a second ago. Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, that's gonna be fun, I think. All right. Let's go to the next bit of news. We have an update from RFA, Rocket Factory Augsburg. A technical update in bold letters. This past few weeks and months have been very busy at RFA. Everything is being prepared for our next first stage hot fire, and great progress has been made on our launch pad at Saxavord. Let's take a closer look. Most visible and impressive, the umbilical tower is up, 52 meters high from the ground, fully equipped with clamps to stabilize and fuel our RFA-1 launch vehicle. The rest of the launch pad has also been completed. Only the water tanks for the water deluge system will be added. Okay. We've begun commissioning the launch pad for the first test flight and expect to conduct some important tests on the pad in the coming weeks. The Launch Control Center is complete and fully equipped. It consists of the Mission Control Center and the Range Control Center. From here, about 5 kilometers, or about 3 miles, 3 miles from the launch site, the team will conduct and monitor the launch. Saxavord Spaceport has completed its AIT hangar, and we were welcome to move in. This is a multifunctional hall for assembly, integration, and testing. AIT for short. You should probably put that up here, but whatever. That we will use for final work and integration of the rocket stages. There's also a clean room for our customers, which provides them with optimal conditions on site and access to their payloads for as long as possible. In short, everything is more ready than ever to receive a first new stage. Yeah. Cool. Are there umbilicals on crane segments? Those are lattice crane pieces. Or no, maybe not lattice crane, tower crane. Definitely tower crane. Those are tower crane segments, dudes. All right. I mean, if it works. You better pick up more energy drinks from PSK this week. Sounds like you'll need them. Yeah, Geeson, those are tower crane parts, dude. Hey, you know what, man? You know what? I'm not judging. That's pretty damn smart, actually. You need a fixed service structure. I'm just kind of wondering how their umbilicals are going to move away, but I think they're on a swing arm. If I'm looking at those right, they seem to be on 3 swing arms. Now, RFA has had some problems. They put their Rocket 1 on the pad a couple of years ago, and they went to do a stage test with it, firing the engines, and something went wrong with cavitation in their liquid oxygen impeller that caused a gigantic fire on the pad, and the sound suppression system was unable to put it out, and the whole pad burned to the ground. That whole pad burned to the ground. It's pretty gruesome footage. It's hard to watch. I mean, nobody got hurt. Thank God nobody got hurt. But, dude, it is tough. It is tough to watch that. Yeah. Here, I'll show you. It's pretty bad. Fire came out the side. Fire came out the side, dudes. That's generally not. That's generally not great. Yeah. So, see, here's the problem here. Well, okay. Plain English way, the problem is right there where all the fire is coming out. Okay? Now that we've established that. So, like I said, they had reports about, what happened. They had cavitation inside of their liquid oxygen impeller. That happens from not bleeding lines correctly. That it's definitely not the design because they've hot fired their engines before. So we know it's not that. That's definitely plumbing. It's something with the plumbing or the countdown sequence of the vehicle. Now, here's the problem. When you have a vehicle on the pad and it blows up and it catches on fire, there's no way to safe it. You have essentially a gigantic bomb on the pad, and if the bottom explodes, there's no way to get any propellant out of it. So you just got to sit there and pray that your sound suppressor at this point, your water systems could put the fire out. If you run out of water, because most pads aren't connected into a sewage system or anything, they just have water locally on the pad. It's not like they have indoor plumbing or anything. Seriously, pads usually aren't connected to the grid like that. It doesn't really pay to run a water line all the way out here because most launch pads are in the middle of nowhere, right? Usually the water is just back pressurized or gravity fed on site, right? So when you run out, that's it. The reason why you're pretty screwed in that regard is because if the bottom exploded because an engine exploded, usually your tail service mast umbilicals, your fueling umbilicals for the rocket are usually in your engine section. And if your engine section pops, there's nothing you can do. You just have a fully fueled rocket that's just spewing out flames on the side, out the side like this. And it's very unlikely that any fluid systems survived that. So yeah, it just kind of sits there and just burns itself to the ground. 2 of these containers next to the pad are huge diesel motors with pumps for the water. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's localized, Jock. I know they ran out of water, which sucks. Dude, that is like slow and painful death. That's such a hard thing to watch. And I'm frankly amazed that RFA had the stones to actually release all this footage. There it goes. There it tips over. Bro, it's so bad. I feel for him, man. That really sucks. That sucks. There's nothing, like, maybe you could have tested it better, but yeah, it burned itself to the ground, weakened the aluminum structure, and then the RP-1 tank fell over and blew up in the flame trench. It's some real Kerbal stuff. And like I said, credit where credit is due to RFA to have the balls to freaking post this footage and then tell us what went wrong. That's really cool. They had a whole anomaly video where they had one of their engineers, who's an absolute Chad-looking dude, come in and explain exactly what happened. Yeah, which is, like I said, I like them. I like RFA. They also made a mod for KSP, by the way. Seriously, there's an RFA Rocket 1 mod for KSP. Yep. I'll link this video if you guys want some additional light reading or video. Yeah. I really, really appreciate that they had the stones to say that. That's really hard to own a failure like that. It's really tough, and I actually really appreciate it. That's really cool, man. Oh yeah, that was the CEO, not an engineer. Yeah, you're right, Vansa. Yeah, they're built different, very unconventional. Hey, man, Jock, here's the thing. All right, I'll just say this. You know, I like giving European spaceflight endeavors a hard time. It's fun to do, but I do it because I want you guys to succeed, right? Like I knock Ariane 6 all the time, but I don't want to see it fail. Hell no. No, please work. With all that being said, you know how we were just talking about SLS, right? And how there's red flags everywhere. There's red flags everywhere. You shouldn't be doing this. Closeout crews there, not there. Heat shield doesn't work, never qualified. Let's launch people on it, etc., etc. With RFA, I see the opposite of that. All right? If your thing explodes on the pad, what you shouldn't do is sit there and be like, nothing happened. No. Especially, you know, if you want... Look, if your rocket blew up, obviously, the first and foremost, you shouldn't have your stuff blow up on the pad, right? But engineering decisions or stakeholder expectations aside, owning that problem and saying exactly what you're going to do to fix it is very commendable. That is how you should be conducting your spaceflight operations. That's correct. If your thing blows up and someone figures it out, you say, look, this is what happened. This is what we're going to do to fix it. One, that reaffirms people that invested money in your company that you're not full of crap. Two, it's really good. It's really good transparency for the public. That's good for us. You know, that could be also good for potential investors down the road. Oh man, this guy made a mistake, but he really knows what he's doing. Owning your mistakes like that is how you have to run if you're doing anything that has to do with spaceflight. Just like, quite frankly, everything. Like, being transparent about it is cool, man. That's how it should be. You should be doing that. And that made me, you know what? Seeing that thing blow up on the pad made me an RFA fan because they owned it. That's what I would have done. Look, it blew up. I'm sorry. It shouldn't have done that. We're a new company. We're figuring it out. You can be damn sure that won't happen again. There you go. There you go. And they did. And that's cool. That's how I would do it, right? You make a mistake, you own that mistake, and you fix it, and you don't just sit there and dilly-dally around and wait 3 years to test a frigging umbilical. That's the difference. That's how you win at this, okay? I love them. You did an internship there, and it was really fun. It was very close to going back for the launch coming up soon. Very ballsy approach. If it's going to work, we'll have a huge upside. Yep, there you go. Talking about saying and not saying thing, wasn't one of the reports for Orion's heat shield completely redacted? Yep. I can tell you that that's the culture there. The amount of blown up engines scattered around the office is wild. There you go, man.
Discovery, go at throttle
That
up.
made me an RFA fan. Like, I like ESAR. ESAR is cool. I wish them all the best. I'm a little bit of an RFA fanboy after that because that's how you do that. That's how you fix things. That shows that you have to be preemptive about this stuff. You have to attack it. You have a problem, the thing blows up in your face. It's like playing Factorio. You have your bugs attack. Well, you don't want bugs to attack again.
Discovery,
go kill their
go at
base.
throttle up.
You got to be preemptive like that. That's what works. That's how you do it. I've read many a spaceflight literature that says this. Not just the systems engineering manual, like Gene Kranz, failure is not an option. He talks all about this. Flight by Chris Kraft. Gene Kranz's right-hand guy, one of the first flight controllers at NASA. Gene and Chris were the first two. This is how this works. This is how it needs to be. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right? Maybe some buts. You know. Depends on how good the mission goes, okay? Hired 85-month resub. Burbs with a 75-monther. It's good stuff, man. I really appreciate it. And I really do wish them well. I'm a huge fan. That's Aqualex. That's bad. Thank you for sending that in a DM, dude. Could we change the subject to something less controversial, like the Super Bowl halftime show? Oh, wait, no, never mind. Sorry. All right. Next bit of news. All right. Is EJ going to play Factorio? I already have hired. I played it for early hours today. And I played it yesterday for everything. And then I played it on Friday for early hours, too. Superb owl, you say? Now, yeah, you're right, Yarg. Yeah, it's a shame that they had to cancel the whole thing, right? That's just a shame. The whole thing got canceled because everybody got the flu. They got the flu. It's flu season, you know. It's a shame that they canceled the whole thing and it never happened. Yeah. It's just, that just sucks. I feel bad. Anyway, next bit of news. Vast. This is coming from Vast. All right. So early and iterative human-in-the-loop evaluations are at the heart of Haven 1's design. Just for context, Haven 1, Vast is a company that is working on building the first commercial space station called Haven 1. And it's scheduled to launch early next year. Engineers and prototypers work closely with Drew Feustel, ex-astronaut, also race car driver, to maximize ergonomics in the tunnel, optimizing safety, placement, size, and functionality of the intermodule ventilation duct interface. No, I'm serious about that. Drew is a race car driver. He that's what he does on the side, on top of being an astronaut. No, running the ball was good. Just thank you for taking my advice, Yarg. I told you to run the ball 12 years ago. You didn't listen. Just saying. Just saying. You should take my advice. It was good advice. So did you enjoy the halftime show? I don't know, man. Tigors, let me answer your question with a question. Do I look like the kind of person that enjoys like Latin hip hop music? Do I look like I enjoy hip hop music in general? Do I hate hip hop music? No. Do I hate Latin hip hop music? No. I listen to music every morning. The music that I listened to this morning was Bark at the Moon by Ozzy, She Sells Sanctuary by The Cult, and You're in Love by Rat. My musical taste diverges here from the halftime show. And I'm not, that's it. That's all. Like, it was cool. There was a sick 1970 F-250 camper special in the halftime show. That's all I'm saying. You know, I know some people hated it. Some people liked it. I'm indifferent. I saw an F-250 in it, and I'm like, all right. Dude, that was a 1970. Hang on. Look. Brother. Look at this. Look at this thing. That was a 1970 F-250 camper special. You know it's a camper special because it's got the running lights. See the running lights? That is a sweet ride. I love that truck. I would want one of those trucks. Okay? That's all I'm saying. And that's where we're going to leave that. Back to space news. All right, we got a Terranar update. Dude, that's a sick truck. I'm just saying. All right? That's all I'm saying. That truck is awesome. That is a beast mode of a vehicle. It's probably got a 390 in it with a C6 behind it because it's a camper special. So, or it might even have a big block. It could have a 429 in it. Camper specials came with 429s. That's all I'm saying. You don't want a 1970 F-250 with a 429 and a C6 behind it? For people that don't speak car, big motor. Big motor. It was just a shell? How do you know it was just a shell? Didn't look like a shell to me. Premium tunage this morning. Right on. Can't beat Rat. I love Rat, dude. With that being said, dude, like, yeah. I watched it. It's cool. Like, I appreciate, dude, there was a lot of effort put in there. Like, clearly, I can appreciate a lot of effort, but that's not the type of music that I listen to, dudes. That doesn't mean I can't appreciate it either. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not my style, man. Like, look at me. Do I look like I like that? I mean, I don't know. You never know. You shouldn't judge nowadays, right? Like, who knows? Anyway, we got an update from Terran R here, and unfortunately, I got to watch it on mute, so we'll just turn on the closed captions and kind of hope from here. This is the January update from 2026. To call it music is a stretch, though. Yeah, brother, here's the thing, man. Is that the type of music that I would listen to? No, probably not. But also, music is very subjective. Don't fall for that trap. Music is subjective. Because the second you say, "Oh, that's not music," someone's gonna be like, "Well, you know, it is to me." Like, did. Somebody appreciates the music. It's the most watched halftime show ever. Okay, somebody appreciates it. I can appreciate it, but it's not the type of music I listen to, man. It really isn't. Like, Rat and Ozzy don't really go with Bad Bunny, but you know, hey, whatever. Music is subjective, right? Let's go. All right. Let's take a look at the progress, design, build, test, and launch that Relativity is working on. Ooh, hello. Oh, baby. Look at LC-16. This month, the team released 1,856 flight parts. At this point in the program, part releases are mainly for secondary structures and integration hardware. No, Iger. Yeah, there you go, Bob. That's kind of where I'm at. I saw you link that already, goalie. Okay, bye. Have a good stream. What? All right, Bone Sister. I'll see you later. Really happy to hear She Sells Sanctuary in San Andreas Radio. It's a great song, dude. I'm sorry, Phone Sister. There's like 10 people talking to me in both chats. I'm sorry if I missed your message. How are you? A nice keyboard, yeah. The Prince Super Bowl halftime. Dude, Prince rocked that show. That was awesome, Garfield. That was a good, yeah, that was probably one of the gnarliest halftime shows around. Oh, yeah, some 3D mouse action. Manufacturing continues in parallel across all major subsystems. Supporting ongoing integration milestones. On the Stage 2 tank, structures and integration work continues. Installed COPVs, brackets, and thermal protection system. Whoa, hello. Okay. Hey, Zach, what's going on? Yeah, I don't know, Deadbringer. I don't know. I want to say hi to everybody. And look, let me just say this as a general PSA. If you think I'm ignoring you, I'm not. If I was ignoring you, you'd be banned from the stream. Okay? Basically, if I don't like you and I'm ignoring you, I'll let you know. Until then, it's just hard to keep up with chats. That's all. Yeah, they're blurring out the covers and the interfaces for the COPVs, but yeah, that's kind of standard industry stuff. Brackets are being mounted, thermal protection systems are being applied. Stage 1 tank was offloaded from the circumferential friction stir welder and moved into an integration lane on the factory floor. Yeah, baby. Work is underway on corrosion mitigations, paint touch-ups, and weld buy-offs. While the fuel and LOX domes are finalized with bracket installation, all panels for the dedicated Stage 1 qualification article are complete. And barrels are now moving into the circumferential friction stir welder. Interesting. Internal stringers, guys. See that on the interstage? Internal stringers. Internal riveted aluminum stringers. Okay. As they finish mechanical assembly, the thrust structure integration work continues while fire seal... What did that say? With fire sealing and avionics tray. Okay, got it. Installation complete and harness routing is underway. There you go. The forward barrel of the interstage. The forward barrel of the interstage completed machining on the vertical turning lathe, and the aft barrel will follow shortly. Domes for the Stage 1 qualification article and future flights are on site and undergoing mechanical assembly. Yeah, just a quick addition here. They don't make those domes. Those domes are bought from Ariane Space. They're Ariane 6 domes. No, I'm not kidding. They also use an Ariane 6 fairing on Terran R. Yeah, kit bashing. It's starting to happen in the private industry. Pretty cool, huh? Sean, I don't say much, but I'm here daily. Keep up the good work. Thank you, sir. I know, man. I know you, bro. Appreciate you. I know. Like, guys, I just don't want anybody ever to get the wrong impression. If I was ignoring you, most likely people would be banned from the stream. Like, just there's a lot more of you than there is me. I would love to say hi to every single person in here if I could. I'm serious. I don't care if that would take 5 hours of stream. I'd still do it. In propulsion, the team shipped more first-stage AR engines to Stennis. Flight acceptance testing continues at pace with additional campaigns completed. Whoa, look at that. Enabling infrastructure to support test campaigns is progressing as well. The A2 stage test stand, all vaporizers which convert cryogenic liquids into controlled gas flow, have been lifted into position. Nearby, the slab is nearly complete and columns are being installed for the new hangar. January brought a chilly Florida winter, but it didn't slow down progress at LC-16. Dude, look at this, man. So, okay, little bit of background here. So, see that little building right there?
Oh, this is space. I'm in space.
Twice a gift of the sub to Bellum. Hey, you love your work. Appreciate you guys. Quasi, what's going on? John, how you doing? Dan, what's going on? I'm serious. I'll say hi to everyone. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. What are we going to do? Waste time? This is long format content. It's cool. Now here, seriously though, time to learn. That's Terran 1's integration facility. That's their horizontal integration facility. They did do one Terran launch from the Terran 1 launch pad right there. That guy. That's Terran R's integration facility. Interestingly enough, it very much looks like Falcon 9's integration building. But Terran R is very similar in size. It's actually a little bit bigger than Falcon 9. But yeah, their launch deck is right here. Their flame diverters installed right there. They got a water tower ready to go over there. Don't get me wrong, fellas. They're still a little ways out from launch. I'd say at the very least, 6 months. It's probably more than that, but this is still really good progress. What's the size comparison for R to 1? Terran 1's about the size of Falcon 1 binary, and Terran R is about the size of Falcon 9. Would you sit in that blockhouse for a launch? Yeah, sure. LC-16 is a former... I forget if it's Atlas or Titan. I think it's Atlas, but I'm guessing. This is a former Atlas launch site here. It actually, no, 16 could be Titan.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
You know what? Let's look. I'll be able to tell you. What's the chance it's the same contractor? Probably is, Geeson. Psycho, keep up the good work. Love your space news. Going back to workers at some point? Yeah, maybe in the future, Psycho, when they got some stuff ironed out. Sure. So, that right there is Launch Complex 12. That's the former LC-12. That's what an Atlas site looks like. That was an Atlas D and Atlas F launch site. LC-13 was also an Atlas D or F launch site. I don't think I need to say what that's doing now. There's Complex 14. Complex 14 is Stoke. That's Stoke Aerospace. That's where the Nova rocket will launch from. They're building out a HIF and stuff over there. Now, this one, that's LC-15, I think. That is abandoned in place. That is an Atlas pad. Yeah. Remember, LC-12 is our analog. That's what the Atlas pad looks like. It has that radius on it. That one had the radius on it, but they used it for something else. It did have a radius at one point, and the retention pond is in the right place. So that right there is LC-16. So that's Relativity right there. You could see them building the HIF in this picture. That's the Terran 1 building. That's the Terran R building. This is a really old picture. This is from April 25th, 2025. So about 9 months ago. Well, a little bit more than that, but you get the idea. That is an X-Titan launch complex. Yeah, it's Titan because it looks exactly like this one right here. That's LC-19, I believe. So yeah, it jumps from 16 to 19 to 20. LC-20 is over here. That's Fireflies. Firefly is doing something with that. I don't know what they're doing exactly, but they're doing something. On Google Maps, it's named Relativity Slick 16. Yeah, it could be SLC, LC, whatever. But yeah, this used to be 4 or 5 Atlas pads and then 3 No. 15 is a Titan pad. So, yeah, it was 4 Atlas pads, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then 15, 16, 19, and 20. It's pretty cool because they all used to look like that. When your boy first got into spaceflight in the late 2000s, that's what it looked like. Nothing. All abandoned pads. Now, don't blink. Boop. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Over here is LC-36, Launch Complex 36, which is a former 2-pad launch complex. This was Space Launch Complex 36A and B, and LC-11. Blue Origin leased 3 of these and combined them into one thing. And that's where New Glenns launch from. New Glenns launches from. Why is there no 17 or 18? Oh, there is. 17 and 18 are down here. That's 17. It was a Delta II twin pad launch complex, and 18 is down here somewhere as well. New Glenns. Yep. So it's pretty cool. This right here in spaceflight slang nomenclature is called Missile Row because the U.S. used it for a lot of missile testing during the Cold War, Atlas and Titan, etc., etc. Missile Row has more occupied pads nowadays than not in the past. The only time this was more occupied was in the 60s when it was made. All of these pads are being used, except for, a couple. Nobody's using 15 and nobody's using 19, I don't think. That's Launch Complex 34. No one's using that. That's where Apollo 1 happened. No one's using that. Now, its next door neighbor is Slick 37. People are using that. That's where SpaceX is going to build their more Starship pads. I saw some pictures from Complex 37 pretty recently. It's SpaceX is going fast. They're going fast. Why didn't this happen in the 60s and 70s? The space shuttle. The space shuttle, dude. In order to get the space shuttle on the books and working, John, they had to rope the Department of Defense into the shuttle program to make one launch vehicle that does everything, civilian or defense. And so what the Air Force did in the late 70s into the early 80s is start to phase out Delta and Titan and Atlas. The Air Force subsequently pulled out of the shuttle program in 1986 after Challenger, and then came up with the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle program, which gave us Titan 4, Atlas 3, a couple of other things. The shuttle stunted the commercial industry. The shuttle did a lot of things, dude, yeah. What will Terranar be launching? Probably some type of proliferated network of satellites, if I had to guess. With maturation of ground systems and launch complex facilities occurring simultaneously, siding on the booster processing section of the horizontal integration facility is nearly fully enclosed, and spray foam insulation is halfway complete. Siding on the southern portion of the horizontal integration facility, which will contain encapsulated fairing breakover devices and mate operations, will begin once remaining internal it's not finished. Water towers being painted and prepped to raise taller. Yep. Yeah, if the water tower looks like it's really low to the ground, they're going to paint it and then they're going to lift it up. Launch mount concrete cure is completed for this month's pours, with formwork being removed soon and structural steel installation beginning. These are propellant lines. With continued momentum across design, build, test, and launch, we're heading into a critical stretch of the year. Thanks for following along, and we'll see you next month. Cool. Good stuff, man. Relativity's doing work. It's good to see. You love to see it. Why are some called Space Launch Complex and others just Launch Complex? There is no unifying thing that denotes what makes it an SLC versus an LCLS. It's just really whoever operates the rocket there, whatever they want to call it, they call it that. They could call it Launch Banana 5 if they really want to. There is no unifying nomenclature there. It's just sometimes it's SLC, sometimes it's not. Whoever the stakeholder is what matters. Like Blue Origin. Blue Origin took over Space Launch Complex 30. They took over SLC 36A and B. But Blue Origin doesn't like Space Launch Complex. Probably because Blue Origin doesn't wants LC 36. You know why? Because LC 36 is close to LC 39, which sounds like a civilian space program and not a military space program. That's my guess. But yeah. Blue does not call it Space Launch Complex 36. They call it LC 36, and they're very vehement about that. Believe me, I got told about that. Yeah, don't call it Slick 36. I'm still gonna, because it's cool. My personal headcanon is Space Launch Complexes are West Coast and Launch Complexes are East Coast. Good enough. Sorry, I patented Space Banana Launch Complex. They can't use that. Oh, I double down on calling it that louder. All right. No, yeah. Good stuff. Actually, just a little bit of a pause here for space news. Did you guys hear that Blue, we heard whispers that it's always whispers with Blue, which is why I say it like this, because they never say what they're doing. We heard whispers that Blue is working on a Blue Moon 1.5, a non-refueling lander solution, or a lander solution for the Artemis program that does not require refueling. And Jeff Bezos actually yesterday, or wait, was that this morning? I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday. I don't know what day it is. It's fine. Jeff Bezos posted this yesterday. It is yesterday. He posted a picture of a turtle. Actually, that's a tortoise. Sorry, I looked at the shell. It's not a turtle. It's a tortoise. Differences. Big differences. Are any of these other abandoned pads big enough for Starship operations? 37 is rarest. Anything else? Probably not. Probably need to build something new. They're moving at a slow but methodical pace. Tortoise in the hare, I believe, was the implication here. And I think Elon... But with 1.5, they're the hare. Yeah. I adjusted the contrast for y'all in case the context wasn't clear. Chris did... okay. Who owns the pad leases? The government. I did that on purpose. I knew that post was there. They're like the two richest dudes in the world right there. Just saying. I'm just saying. All right. Okay. I'm not trying to make any particular point. It's just, okay. 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 All right. But yeah, supposedly they're working on something. You think Elon and Jeff Bezos are best friends pretending to be enemies? Yeah, maybe. It's possible. I didn't know Ferrari were doing F1 promos on the moon. Ooh, spicy. Spicy. Don't worry, Chris. I have other teams that I can cheer for in Formula One this year that surely won't let me down. Like Cadillac or Haas or something. You know, surely they'll do good, right? There's also Red Bull with Ford. That sucks, though. That means I need to root for Red Bull. I don't want to root for Red Bull. I can't stand Red Bull. Man. I guess I have to. I guess we have to. McLaren all the way. Oh, now I'm really rooting for Ford. Let's go, man. I want that blue oval on top. Come on, Max. Drive the piss out of that car. Ah, God, that felt awful saying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hate Red Bull. I'm a freaking Ferrari fan. I hate everyone, okay? It's just, that comes with part and parcel with being a Ferrari fan. You just hate everyone. Like, I've been a Ferrari fan for so goddamn long. Was a Ferrari fan when they won the championship last. Now I have to say Audi as a German? Oh, yeah, Auto Union is good, yeah. Yeah, very nice. All right. Could SpaceX combine launch pads like Blue for Starship? Yeah, sure, anything is possible. No, Alex, I'm not saying that at all. All you need is hate. Da, 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 da. Does that include hating yourself the last 2 seasons? I didn't say it didn't, Ska. It's just pain. Pain. All right. Anyway, let's continue. SpaceX news. So, Eric, we're going to start with a post from Eric Berger. Congratulations to Lars Blackmore, who, as much as anyone, is responsible for Falcon 9 landings, on being elected to the National Academy of Engineering. Yep. Yeah, Lars. Yeah, one of the big guys at SpaceX. Principal Mars landing engineer for SpaceX. Mars landing engineer, huh? For those unaware, SpaceX has already shifted focus to building a self-growing city on the moon, as we could potentially achieve this in less than 10 years, whereas Mars would take 20 plus years. The mission of SpaceX remains the same: extend consciousness and life as we know it to the stars. It is only possible to travel to Mars when the planets align every 26 months, 6-month trip time, whereas we can launch to the moon every 10 days, 2-day trip time. 2-day trip time. Whoa, that's a high energy transfer on a 2-day trip time, but hey, whatever. This means we can iterate much faster to complete a moon city than a Mars city. That said, SpaceX will always strive to build a Mars city and begin doing so in about 5 to 7 years. But the overriding priority is securing the future of civilization, and the moon is faster. Didn't Artemis 1 take a week to transfer out to Luna? No, it took about 3 days, Aurora. And then it's circularized in a DRO, distant retrograde orbit, which is basically a really, really high altitude retrograde orbit. Distant retrograde orbit. Now, okay, a couple of things. So I want to be very clear. What that means is that SpaceX is pivoting to building a city on the moon. AI stuff notwithstanding, guys, I'm okay with this. I still don't think that the AI is necessarily the best way to do this, but also at the same time, I've always I've always said that the moon is a great practice facility for Mars. If you can survive and create a self-sustaining habitat on the surface of Luna, our moon, you can absolutely do it on Mars. Absolutely. Like, indefinitely, yes, yeah. The moon is more difficult to live off of the land on. Mars is way easier in comparison. Mars actually has some semblance of an atmosphere. Some semblance. The moon has nothing. The moon is quite actually a big rock floating around in space. There is other stuff up there, but it's mostly rocks. Now, with all that being said, yeah, I think that this is a great idea. This is a really good idea. SpaceX going all in on building a city on the moon, I'm cool with this. That will help them figure out how to work to go to Mars. Yeah, it's a good call. I really think this is the right move. I actually think that SpaceX should have done this like 10 years ago. They should have started doing it with Falcon 9 or something, if you really want my honest opinion. I've always been moon first. Every single time. I think we should go to the moon first. Mars is difficult. But if you could build a base that self-sustains on the moon, you're fine. Mars, not fine. You're never going to be fine. It's spaceflight. It's dangerous. That is ultimately like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. This completely negates the whole reason they chose methane for Starship. Why? Because there isn't carbon on the moon? Look, man, if you can live off the moon, you're fine. And I think that, yeah, methane makes more sense for Mars, but the moon is right there. They want helium-3. I've never heard Elon say anything about helium-3, Rick, to be honest with you. But it'll give faster feedback, lower scope and expenditure. It should have been the first target. Yes. Yep, Junk, I'm with you. Totally with you. Do they have to fix the mural in the parking garage? No, I think that they're changing around their expectations to work around Mars. Guys, you got to understand, this is great. Look, okay, think about it like this, all right? You're going out to the moon. Not every starship that's going to go out there. All right, do you remember what I was telling you? If Starship, all right, some basic math here, and a little bit about Delta V. Let's learn about rockets for a second. So delta V in spaceflight is how far a rocket can go. That's how far it can go. It's measured in acceleration. Spacecraft range is not measured in distance because that makes no sense. That's not how gravity works. That's like measuring a car's range in miles per gallon. It doesn't, you can extrapolate range from it, but that doesn't really make sense. Right? Because spacecraft are measured in delta V, all right, it's fairly easy to predict, how far a certain spacecraft can take a certain thing. Like you can use logical extrapolations, like you can with my MPG versus car range. If you know the car miles per gallon, but you don't know the range, you can figure it out. Now, with all that being said, SpaceX has said that their expectation for the Block 3 Starship is 100 tons to low Earth orbit. Okay. So with 100 tons to low Earth orbit, you can extrapolate some delta V numbers here. So I'm assuming here that 100 tons to orbit means you have the capacity, the fuel capacity to get up there, deploy 100 tons of whatever into low Earth orbit, and then have enough to come back down and land, because Starship has to come back down and land and get caught, right? How much delta V do you think we need for landing? 400, 500 meters a second, something like that? That would mean that with 100 tons of payload, right? With 100 tons of payload, Starship pretty much on orbit has, no delta V to go any further. Now, how much do you need to go out to the moon? It's about 6 extra kilometers a second, or you need to accelerate to about, 25,000 miles an hour, right? You need 9,000 meters a second delta V to get into space. All right. So with 100 tons, we can assume 9,000 or a little bit more because of the landing to get into space. Right. I think that's a fair assumption. It's being a little lenient, but it's fine. All right. So listen to this. Listen to this. You want to test entry, descent, and landing. You really want to put your thermal protection system through some stress, right? Going to the moon makes Starship flights more iterative. And not only do they make them more iterative, you can a re-entry coming back from the moon. So a trans-Earth injection from lunar orbit is going to exhibit very similar reheating characteristics as a trans-Earth injection from Mars orbit. Much better way to rapidly iterate on your heat shield that way. And it gets you way better data for coming back from Mars and entry, descent, and landing on Mars as well. EDL on Mars is more similar for a low Earth orbit re-entry. But here's where this all comes into play. If Starship has enough to move 100 tons into low Earth orbit with nothing in the payload bay, let's say 10 tons, with 10 tons in the payload bay, right? Assuming 9,600 meters a second delta V with 100 tons with 0 in the payload bay, you could shoot an entire Starship, thermal protection system and all, and let's say 10 tons for maybe crew quarters inside of it, right? You could shoot that all out to the moon easily. No problem. Oh, yeah. And check this out. Check this out. Another thing to take into account is that Elon is estimating a 2-day trip time to the moon. 2 days. Apollo took 3 with a rocket as big as a Saturn V. Now, Starship has a little bit more kick behind it than a Saturn V. Right? And ultimately, we'll have more Delta V. Right? A Starship with 10 tons on a 2-day trip cycle is assuming probably, instead of 9,600 to get into space, if you take all 90 tons of payload out, put 10 tons of, beds and people inside of Starship and the life support systems to send them out there, that's probably closer to 15 or 16, maybe 17 kilometers a second total Delta V. And, what that means in plain English terms is that you can use Starship just to get people to the moon. With refilling operations for landers in low lunar orbit, you could get people to the surface of the moon by having them fly direct to lunar orbit on a Starship, rendezvousing with a fully fueled Starship HLS, and then going down and landing. Yeah. Direct access to the moon. If you did a refill, right? If you did a refilling flight with 10 tons, with that same 10 tons of payload, Starship could land on the surface of the moon and then come back. Think about that for a second. A Starship could launch into space with, crew on board, refill in low Earth orbit, and then go to the surface of the moon from low Earth orbit. If we assume SpaceX eventually wants Starship to be able to have 200-ton payload capacity to LEO. If we assume 200-ton, you could go direct to the surface of the moon from a launch and back. Think about that for a second. SpaceX going ham on the moon is going to be a great way to iteratively test your heat shields for interplanetary trans-Earth injection trajectories. What does that mean in plain English? Coming back from the moon, coming back from Mars puts way more stress on your thermal protection system. It gets way hotter because you're falling from a much higher distance. Right? You throw a ball up in the air, right? 100 feet up in the air, right? It's going to come back down with a certain speed. You throw it 1,000 feet up in the air, it's probably going to hit terminal velocity, but terminal velocity is faster than what it would be on its arc for 100, right? Same idea. Only you don't have terminal velocity in space because there's no atmosphere. Does that make sense? How would boil-off work? I'm assuming that if they got refilling figured out, ride tech, that they probably have boil-off figured out. Long story short, header tanks. Yeah,
Discovery,
carbon on the
throttle
moon
up.
is a solvable problem. That's really the gist of what I was getting at. SpaceX is building a Starship park at Starbase. Hopefully it's public. I want to walk near Starships. Sent you the document. Oh, sign the document. Oh, that's cool. Neat. Hey, Jam, 131-month resub. Honest question. If we land people on the moon for the first time again with Artemis 3, how soon after Artemis 3 mission do you think we'll be back? I think Jared Isaacman telling both of the prime lander contractors, so Blue and SpaceX, to go fast means that we're going there and we're going to stay, and the next mission is going to happen rather expediently. That's where I think the fundamental Artemis timeline is going to change. Can you please explain how Carmen on the moon is a solvable problem? From all my readings, they say otherwise. First of all, frick all your other readings. Second of all, it's a solvable problem when you have 200-ton payload capacity. Take 10 tons of carbon up there. All right, there are ways to get it off the surface. It's there. It's not in any particular high quantity, so just take it with you. See, Kraken, to be 100% honest, like I said, if you have 100-ton payload capacity, this is not an issue, and we shouldn't be treating it like one. Also, moon coal, obviously. There's moon coal in Stationeers. Why wouldn't it be there? Why wouldn't it be there in real life, right? Like, surely the video game is... The views coming back from the moon on Starship during re-entry will be sick. Yep. Be pretty good. Pretty good, man. Okay, so while we're talking about SpaceX here, let's keep going. So Kiko Donchev, who's the VP of launch at SpaceX, posted that Crew 12 is on the pad, waiting for good weather while the moon awaits a return visit from Earth. Nice picture. Also, it's awesome to see Dragon 2 consistently launching from pad 40. Well, the crew arm has come down at 39A for maintenance, and to clear the way for Falcon Heavy and Starship, we'll maintain the capability to call up crew missions at 39A if needed. Oh, that's Carson. Good morning, Kiko. Dragon 2 at 40 is awesome. Should have done Dragon at 39A and 40 for the photo op. Also, the crew, the 39A access arm is still on the tower. Yeah, I should have wrote Will. Should be down today or early this week. For maintenance, is the plan to service the arm then reinstall it or keep it down until there's a need to fly crew from 39A? Guessing that's the latter, but curious. Crew access arm will stay down until there's a need. All right, well, that settles that. That settles that argument. To fill a Starship, you will need 300 to 400 tons of graphite. I understand if you don't... Yeah, but you're thinking fully refuel on the moon, Sea Kraken. I'm thinking about have enough fuel to get into low lunar and then trans-Earth injection from there. We are not the same. You're not going to need that much for the return trip, dude. Return trip with no payload. Pretty low Delta V requirements. I was told they want to keep the arm for a backup as a 90-day emergency response. Yeah, that makes sense. Crew access arm, just throw it out back and put a tarp on it. Actually, Bob, maintenance. That's what I mean. That problem didn't make any sense, dude. Them removing the arm did not make sense. That doesn't. I don't understand why they did that. Well, now we know it's maintenance. It's broken. That's why. Last for heat shield testing from the moon. What's on your mind, Ace? I did some quick math. The entry speed at 100-kilometer altitude from the moon would be about 11 kilometers a second, while entry from a parabolic Mars orbit would be a bit above 11 kilometers a second. So the difference is pretty small, and the heat shield testing would be very nice. Like I said, I've always been pro-moon. I understand why we should go to Mars, but I've always said go to the moon first. Part of the reason why I like the Artemis program is that. Throw it out back and put a tarp on it. I was describing your driveway. Thanks. Do you think they'll start speeding up with the Artemis 4? Yes. Oh, yeah, I've always been moon first, dudes. So I agree with SpaceX. And a lot of people are kind of bummed about it, but I've been reading around on social media, which is probably something I shouldn't be doing. Yeah, it is what it is. Moon could be a springboard to other places. Nah. Dude, I'll use some geography to kind of explain this. Okay. I'll just use my local geography, okay? So I live here. This is Massachusetts. I live here in Plymouth, right there. Picture Nantucket being the moon. Okay? That's the moon in this analogy. Is it easy to go from here to here? Well, it's difficult because you got to get on a boat and you got to get on a ferry, drive over there, and then come back. Yeah, sure, a little bit difficult, but it's super close. Using the moon as a proverbial stepping stone to Mars makes about as much sense as trying to get to New York City over here via Nantucket. Does that make sense? That's the moon in our delta V orbital mechanics analogy here. It's there, it's close, and it's nice, right? But if you're trying to get literally anywhere else, going there first makes no sense. Because it's over there. It's not over there. From an orbital mechanics standpoint. Does that make sense? Do you think there's any stock in the idea of turning whatever we have of the gateway modules and converting them into surface-based modules? Saw that floating around on Twitter. No. So, Kraken, I can see that you did not like my response. Okay, what happens with, you send landers down there with refilling, and each lander brings down an aggregate amount. So a lander can make fuel on the moon with the Sabatier reaction. Aggregate amounts of carbon. I understand carbon is a big, heavy molecule to deal with, and going to the moon makes no sense. It's not SpaceX's long-term goals. It's just in the interim. The whole point is that it's something that they'll figure out. It's not... There are ways logistically when you can move 200 tons into low Earth orbit. Okay, let me rephrase that. If you can't figure out a way to sustainably explore the moon with a Methalox rocket when you have 200-ton LEO payload capacity, you're doing something wrong. Let me say it that way. Does that make more sense? Bro, 200 tons to LEO, you do whatever the hell you want. You could make it run off bananas. And you're fine. Solid rocket fueled bananas. Well, you would only need 450 meters a second to go interplanetary from distant lunar orbit. From a distant lunar orbit, you have to first get to the moon, which is 15 kilometers a second, Lava Eagle. It pushes, basically. It's about the same. Yeah. From a Delta V standpoint. What's the possibility someone high up at SpaceX, Blue Origin, and NASA is watching us? I don't know. I know people out in the industry watch the stream, Aurora. I don't know who. They certainly don't tell me, but I know people do. Agreed, Nader. Yep. I agree, Tim. If you establish a long-term settlement out on the moon, and this is where Gateway really comes into play, not necessarily as a transfer vehicle, right? And Dino, this is the reason why I don't think they'd land Gateway. Gateway or a Starship in rectilinear halo orbit is really, really good at simulating the deep space transit. To get to Mars, okay, so once again, a little bit more on orbital mechanics here if you don't know. Earth is closer to the sun. Mars is a little bit further away. Because they have a different, what's called semi-major axis, basically Mars is higher altitude relative to the sun, the Earth is moving faster than Mars. Only every 26 months do they come kind of close to each other. And that is the most opportune time to go. That requires the least amount of delta V to get to Mars. That is called phasing. It's called phasing in orbital mechanics. You have to be in the right phase. You basically have to be in the right position to lead the shot because you're shooting off a starship, right? And you have to lead the target. It's easier to lead the target when it's close. That makes sense? So with that being said, the transfer is every 26 months to get to Mars. Transfer window happens every 26 months. It's about a 2 to 3 month trip, depending on when you launch, give or take. About a 2 to 3 month trip to get out to Mars if you're in the right phasing. Okay? Where Gateway comes into play is that a ship in rectilinear halo orbit or a ship in any type of lunar orbit around the moon is a great way to have something basically simulate that transfer, that loiter
Discovery,
time.
go at throttle up.
Think about this for a second. You want to get to Mars. It's a 3-month trip. That means you need a spacecraft that's operating by itself with people on board, no refueling, no resupply, no food, no nothing. For 3 months. And you only have radio contact. That's the only way to get to Mars that we know of. I mean, maybe Uncle Sam has something quicker, in which case call me. I'd like to go. That'd be pretty cool. So, sending a Starship out there and just parking it in lunar orbit and then sending it back 3 or 4 months later after it's been floating around the moon for a little while is a great way to test your Martian mission architecture. It's, like I said, SpaceX just should have done that. They should have been doing that since the start. I'm amazed it took this long to pivot. Have you invented a new rocket? It's closer to 6 to 9 months to get to Mars. No. 2 to 3 month transfer with a high energy transfer like Starship. Yeah, it's 2 to 3 months. I'm pretty damn sure. You're also sufficiently outside of Earth's magnetic field to study the effects of high energy particles on prolonged missions. Bingo, it's deep space. That's really important. That's why the Gateway exists, because NASA is trying to do the same thing with Gateway. No, Toothless, not that. No Mars for you. Chat delay would be horrible. Okay. While we're on the subject of Starship, here, peep this. Is Gateway still going to be a thing for Artemis 3? No. Well, maybe. It depends. But check this out, guys. Good news coming from SpaceX. Cryoproof operations complete for the first time with the Super Heavy V3 booster. This multi-day campaign tested the booster's redesigned propellant systems and structural strength. What is cryoproofing? Cryoproofing is where they fill the vehicle up with liquid nitrogen to make sure that filling it up with liquid methane and liquid oxygen, well, liquid methane up here, liquid oxygen down here, won't make the thing pop. Yeah. Liquid nitrogen is a good enough analog to simulate LOX and LCH4. Yeah, so that's the first thing they do. One of the first things they do with a booster. Fill the damn thing up. Test it. That's a big milestone, guys. Yeah, Booster 18 was... Booster 18 did not make it anywhere near this far in its cryoproofing. They were doing an ambient pressure test, which is the beginning of their cryoproof test campaign, and one of the COPVs here blew up in one of the chines. So 19 was the first one to get this far, which is great. That's really good news. So that's good news in a couple of ways. One, that proves that whatever happened with 18 was a fluke. It's not the design. It's quality assurance or quality control or something with COPVs. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that SpaceX bought a company that makes the exact things that failed on Booster 18. I don't think that's a coincidence. But also, yeah, huge milestone for Booster 19. That's really good stuff. Really good. Ooh, real quick, before we finish up with the SpaceX stuff, Firefly, this got buried in my links. One step closer on the stairway to 7. This is coming from Firefly Aerospace. Following a successful 20-second static fire, Alpha Flight 7 launch window will open net February 18th, no earlier then. Stay tuned for more info on the test flight. All right. We got another Firefly Alpha launch coming up. That's cool. That link got buried. I lost it in the SpaceX links. But there you go. Good stuff. Stairway to... Dude, that patch. And she's buying a stairway to 7. Nice. That font is very, very close to Led Zeppelin's font. That's pretty sick. Yeah, I don't hate that. Pretty cool. All right. Okay, here's one more thing on the whole Moon versus Mars here. This is some guy, I don't know who Akash Gupta is. I have no idea. Some thing where he says how much all of his revenue streams make a month. Nice. What does he say? A city on the moon will cost somewhere between $100 billion and $500 billion, require thousands of Starship flights, and demand a decade of nonstop construction in a place where the temperature swings between 400 C between day and night. Not on the poles. Question. The dust cuts through metal seals like sandpaper, and a single cracked habitat window means everyone inside is dead in about 90 seconds. No stairway. Denied. I do believe they still have 20, goalie, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Elon just announced SpaceX is doing it anyway. Here's the actual engineering path. You build at the South Pole. Hey, that's what I said. Specifically the rims and floors of craters like Shackleton and Cavus, where temperatures in permanent shadow drop below minus 230 C. NASA estimates 600 million metric tons of water ice are buried in these craters under about 40 centimeter of dry regolith. That water becomes your oxygen supply, your drinking water, your radiation shielding, and 78% of your rocket propellant by mass. The crater rims get near continuous sunlight for solar power, and you build where the resources are. Getting there is where it gets wild. Every Starship lunar mission requires 10 to 15 tanker flights to refill 1,200 tons of propellant in Earth orbit before the ship can even leave. One cargo delivery to the lunar surface burns through roughly 12 Starship launches. Starship V3 lands 100 metric tons per trip. The moon is 2 days away with a launch window every 10 days. Mars gets one window every 26 months with a 6-month flight. That's 13 times iteration advantage, which is why Elon pivoted. The first 20 to 30 landings are all cargo, no humans. You send solar arrays for the crater rims targeting 100 kilowatt continuous nuclear fission reactors for the 14-day lunar night, ISRU rigs that mine ice from the regolith and electrolyze it into hydrogen and oxygen, pressurized HAB modules, and autonomous rovers that 3D print structures from lunar soil using concentrated solar heat. Okay. Yeah, well, when's all that? When are you making all that? Anyway, each landed Starship also stays as a permanent building. 50 meters tall, 9 meters wide, 1,100 cubic meters of pressurized volume. The ISS has 916 cubic meters and took 13 years to assemble. 3 Starships on the surface already exceed that. But never mind. The economics flip the moment you start producing oxygen on the moon. You stop shipping 78% of your propellant mass from Earth. Tanker flights per mission drop from about 15 to 4. Every ton produced locally frees up mass budget on the next inbound Starship for more construction equipment, food systems, and mining hardware. The base starts building the base. That's what self-growing means. Compound logistics where each delivery makes the next delivery cheaper. I mean, for somebody that's not a spaceflight guy, apparently, this guy knows more than most, but some of it is a little okay. But most of it's right. 2027, the first uncrewed Starship lunar landing. SpaceX told investors March 2027. 2028 to 2030, cargo buildup. 30 to 50 deliveries, all robotic. ISRU prototypes go operational. 2030 to 2032, first crews arrive. Probably 6 to 12 people, 6-month rotations, running equipment, maintenance, and scaling propellant production. 2033 to 35, permanent population hits 50 to 100. Propellant depot goes up in low lunar orbit, so arriving ships refuel before descent. 2035 onwards, population grows past 100. Agricultural models come online. The base becomes partially self-sustaining. No, this is not AI. He wrote that dude wrote this. Just look at Elon's reply. Creeper, we have to understand context before we get to that. Before we get that far. The unsolved problems are real. Lunar. Damn it. Lunar dust is electrostatically charged and sharp as broken glass. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It shreds seals, clogs machinery, and embeds in lung tissue. Nobody has a long-duration fix because we haven't needed to do that yet. If we go to the moon, it's an easily solvable problem. They figured it out with the Apollo program good enough. Just saying. Radiation on the surface runs 200 times Earth's dose. Regolith shelters and water shielding help, but add enormous construction overhead. 14-day night drops to minus 173 C and kills all solar power. But you proved your point. It's abrasive, Ghost Mooner. It's lunar regolith is like talcum powder or baby powder. It's really you ever use like baby powder or something and you get it on your shirt and it's not coming off? That. It's like that, but it's abrasive. So it's like very finely ground dust, like rocks. Remnants of the moon basically being pulverized by something that hit it so hard it ground all the rocks into nothing. And the only flight-ready nuclear reactors produce 1 to 10 kilowatt, far below what a growing base demands. What years of 1/6 gravity due to the human bone density and cardiovascular systems is completely unknown. Brother, if we could survive on the ISS, I'm pretty sure the moon isn't a problem. Considering microgravity. But anyway, SpaceX is valued as $1 trillion, and it just told investors the moon comes first. They're betting that proving lunar logistics at commercial cadence builds the playbook for Mars. The moon is a 2-day test lab with a 12-day resupply cycle. Mars is a 6-month voyage with a 2.5-year wait if anything breaks. It makes sense. I was trying to see if this guy was trying to prove him wrong or not, but he seems to know what's going on. This is what Elon replied to. The Starship V4 tanker version will deliver more than 200 tons of propellant per flight, so more like 5 to 6 tanker flights to refill the Lunar Transit Starship in orbit. Shouldn't be too much of a problem if we're doing about 10,000 flights a year. You're going to need a lot of starships to do that, homie. A lot of starships. Like I said, guys, that's what I mean. This problem is infinitely more solvable when you can move 200 tons of whatever the hell you want into low Earth orbit. It becomes easily solvable. Some bits of that were cool, and I agree. Some bits not so. Yeah, exactly. Bob, that always gets me with spaceflight. People say, well, we don't know how to do propellant transfer. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do that because we haven't tried, not because it's an unsolvable problem. Okay? We haven't do that because we haven't done it because we haven't tried. Why haven't we gone back to the moon? We haven't tried. That's the issue. How do we got to deal with the lunar dust? Well, the Apollo missions didn't seem to have any problem with it. Well, the problems that they did have were mitigated by Apollo 17. Jack Schmitt, the guy who flew on Apollo 17, is still alive. So clearly it's not like a silicosis problem here or something, Rolls-Royce have a lunar nuclear microreactor design that is estimated at 10 megawatt electric. Good. How much mass is that? 200 tons could move a lot of those things to the lunar surface. That's all I'm saying. I don't think you really need to worry about radiation up there either because, it's just everywhere. Like the radiation from the reactors. Use the service to heat your station, and the helium for quantum can be mined directly on the moon. That's not a bad idea, viscosity for a server room, yeah. With all the pads being built, I heard that's one like every 4 hours from each pad, and it sounds crazy, but it's not that crazy. They're going to need more starships. I'm not worried about the pads, Milge. You 2 at Boca Chica, 2 at Slick 37, and probably they're probably going to build 2 at 39A as well. Have you watched the propellant transfer demo the ISS crew posted with 2 water bottles? Yes. We didn't know how to spaceflight until we spaceflighted. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I hate people that do that stuff. Not that that dude was doing that. That guy's, what's his name? Akash Gupta. That's actually pretty astute. That's pretty damn right. That's all the stuff we were talking about. Yeah, that guy knows. I would go so far as to say that that dude probably knows what he's doing. At least when it comes to when he's talking about spaceflight, he's absolutely right. Compounding logistics, like what he was saying, is yeah. That's absolutely right. I'm worried about the fuel. The production would be huge here. Really? I mean, the commercial aviation industry doesn't have this problem. Yes, I know methane isn't jet fuel. I understand, but it's close. What does he do? He seems like some type of finance dude. I don't know. You still want to shield reactors because people will go near them for inspection and maintenance checks. Fair. Methane, get the cows. I mean, seriously. Like, Thomas, here's my thing. Do we produce enough methane? Just like methane gas from civilization, let's just say, like cows, for instance. Do we produce enough of that to support 10,000 flights a year? I'm not saying like making actual rocket fuel, just methane. Do we produce enough methane gas to support that? I would say absolutely yes. If we just like took all the cattle that's in the entirety of the United States, how much methane gas is that? It's probably a lot, probably enough to support a good amount of flights. And that's just cows. Not that I'm saying Elon's going to go around, farming cow gas. I'm just saying that methane production is not that big of a deal. That's not a big problem. We already produce tons of fossil fuels. Millions of tons of fossil fuels. Yeah, we put fart bags on cows. Sure. Texas has a lot of cows. Let's go. Landfill methane reclamation. Sure, let's go. Has SpaceX said in what orbit they plan to put the AI computing things in? They're in medium Earth orbit, Lava, but that's all we know. We leak enough methane from pipelines to support that. There you go, dude.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Roshan Devasto, what's going on? Tier 1 3 months in advance. Thank you very much. Welcome to Mission Control, your go at throttle up. Not to mention frozen methane in the ocean. Yep, there you go. 2 liters stuck up a cow's behind. That'll also get you there. It won't. But Geek, thanks for putting that image in everybody's head. I do appreciate it. LN2 refinery going up in Brownsville. Well, that's a LNG refinery. That would not be a fun job. I don't need to do that. Somebody else can do that job. Cows support enough where some farmers have a methane condenser to have methane powered tractors. There you go. Hit a nice whiff of that on the road trip. That was terrible. They may need to lower the methane purity requirement for Raptor though, which is what I think they've been doing. Yeah, exactly. Cyborg, if you open up Raptor for LNG, this is not an issue. If you can make Raptor run off liquefied natural gas, this whole question of whether there's enough methane becomes irrelevant. Because is there enough LNG? Oh, yes. There is enough LNG. There's more than enough. Anyway. Well, also, just real quick, Niall got this... He took a capture from Starbase Live of them driving piles in for Pad 1's flame trench at Boca Chica. How about that, huh? They're already starting to dig the flame trench for the first pad. That's pretty neat. The infrastructure was a roadblock in your head. Yep. No, I get it. But yeah. Woo! In my opinion, Hydrolox Raptor solves a dozen or more problems. I mean, Sea Kraken, here's the thing. Do I disagree with that? Yeah. Should SpaceX do it? Don't know. If they did it, I would not be upset. Is that fair? You mean this pad? That's right. Yes, this pad. This pad is getting its flame trench piles put in, which is pretty cool. That pad's almost done. Here, we'll bring up the live shot from Starbase Live, our friends over there at NASA Spaceflight. KSA IVA model. Ooh. Ooh, yeah, we're going to have to check that out. Yep, there's the pile driver at the first pad. Oh, that crane's moving, dude. All right. Just feed it moon rocks. I mean, we could. All right. Last bit, we'll check out the capsule IVA stuff from our buddies over at Rocket Works. Let's see. This is from Kitten Space Agency, the spiritual successor to KS. Holy crap. Whoa. Damn. Art doesn't make the game, though. Yeah, we know that. That's really nice. It's supposed to look like a Gemini capsule. Where's the sandwich? Can we get more treats? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there they are, right there. Some real nice texturing going on there with the pads. Real good. Really nice normal maps on the pipes, too. Very nice. Wow, this looks great, dude. Yeah, that's really good. It's really good. Current thoughts of KSA. I like what I see, Ari. Can't say much more, but I like what I see. Those are Dean's sardines. That's awesome. Imagine doing catnip in space. Okay. All right. That's enough. that's enough. That's enough. Okay. All right, and on that bombshell, that's going to do it for the Space and Rocket Review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We did about 2 hour 30 minutes. That's good. That's good enough for space news. That's good. Can we play more Factorio? Can we play more Factorio? Is that something we can do? Play my winter car tomorrow. Cool. All right. Did you do all your homework? Yeah, Dad. Chat. Yeah, Nova One, we saw that already. It's actually pretty fine hired. Yeah, it's pretty good. I want to join. No, this is my single player playthrough,
Discovery,
man.
go at throttle up.
Have you seen Brimo lately? Yes. Yeah. All right. Factorio it is. Stand by for part 4. Coming at you very soon. And by soon, I mean like 30 seconds. YouTube, stand by for loss of signal. I will see you momentarily.